Hey there, this is Richard from Leaflet, and we recently helped an apparel brand use price testing to scale gross margin by 84% in less than 5 weeks. This was without any change in ad budgets or throwing down any more discounts. Now 84%, that's a pretty sweet lift, especially when you're talking about gross profit, yeah? There are not many things in business that can generate an 84% lift in gross profit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the exact step-by-step process that we use to achieve this. This is for brand owners that are looking to maximize their growth rates or exit valuations. This is for e-commerce managers that are looking to hit or exceed their quarterly growth targets. This is for agencies that are looking for new ways to delight clients and build long-term partnerships. Now, everyone knows that pricing matters, but putting that into practice is easier said than done. But deep down, we all can't help wondering, right? How much money are we leaving on the table? How much faster could we be growing? Now, you may have thought about these questions or done some informal price testing. But if you're like most people we talk to, you probably have not done anything in a super methodical way. Maybe more of an ad hoc process. Maybe you tried one of those apps that switches the price of a product back and forth for some period of time. Maybe you were afraid that customers would get upset. Maybe you felt disappointed by not having a true A/B test. Maybe you were doing the whole thing yourself by creating duplicate products and a bunch of spreadsheets and it was just too much to handle. Maybe you tested the price of one or two products but never scaled up to your whole product catalog because it was just too much work. In fact, that's one of the most common reasons we hear for why brands don't take price testing seriously. It's just the sheer amount of work involved. If you want to set up a controlled test where you're testing two prices at once, you have to set up a testing environment in your store. And doing that without sort of throwing a monkey wrench into the rest of your business is not such a simple thing, because pricing interacts with all kinds of other systems in your business, whether it's inventory, whether it's email marketing, whether it's your product feed for third-party sales channels. All of that is connected, and so setting up a controlled test in a way that doesn't cause more problems than it's worth, it takes work. Let's just say that. Beyond that, once you've got everything set up, then you have to plan your tests, you have to execute your tests, you have to analyze your tests, you have to iterate and pivot. There's a lot of work at every step of the process, and it's a lot more work than what people are used to with traditional A/B testing in a conversion rate optimization context. You know, people are used to, maybe you have a form and there's a button in the form and you want to test, do I get a better yield when the button is blue or when the button is orange? That's still pretty simple because there's only one element, one button, and there's two potential states, either it's orange or it's blue. It's totally different than a situation where you're selling 1,000 products or 100,000 products and they all have their own price and they all have their own like profit maximizing price. Or even if like you're really particular that you want certain products to move together or to be priced together, still probably you're selling more than one type of product. There's just a lot more moving pieces, a lot more to keep track of, especially when you think about the fact that you need to be looking at the detailed view as well as the bird's eye view. There's a lot more work involved with testing prices than with testing in your traditional CRO context. So that's the work piece. And then there's the risk piece. What's the risk associated with price testing? The risk is maybe you'll put in all of this work or maybe you'll spend a bunch of money on consultants or software or whatever just to find that in reality your prices that you already have are about as efficient and profitable as they could possibly be. Now that may sound like a good thing because that means you're doing it right already. Why do I call that a risk? I call it a risk because typically when someone puts in a bunch of work or pays a bunch of money, it's with the hope of gaining some kind of a reward, right? We don't just go around doing work with no hope of reward. So if you put in a bunch of work or pay a bunch of money and there's no reward on the other end of that process, that can be pretty disappointing. And it's actually even worse than that because in order to prove that your existing prices are already as efficient as they could possibly be, by definition, you have to try something that's less efficient for some amount of time, for some percentage of your traffic. And the extent to which you try that less efficient thing or things for whatever amount of time or traffic you give to it, that is the extent to which you're actually losing out, because you have missed opportunity, missed sales, missed revenue, missed profits. And so that's the kicker. You can actually put in all that work, maybe spend a bunch of money, not get anything in terms of a gain, and actually lose money in the process. So between the work and the risk, it's enough to for a lot of brands, unfortunately, to let price testing as a lever of growth sort of fall to the wayside, or at least that's the traditional, popular consensus, is that like this is an important thing to do, but not now. Well, a lot of that is changing recently with everything that's going on in the world, and I'll elaborate more on that in a minute. But if you've been thinking that now is a good time to get serious about testing your prices, I can tell you you're probably correct about that. iOS 14, the new mobile operating system from Apple, is making it harder to track conversions on ad platforms like Facebook, which is driving up cost of acquisition and driving down ROAS pretty much across the industry. This, combined with relatively high levels of inflation for the last many months, have created a greater sense across the e-commerce community in general, exposing and exploiting every possible source of competitive advantage, and in particular in price testing. Now, there are a lot of people who can help you with marketing or conversion rate optimization, but none of that stuff actually works unless you've got the foundation figured out. None of that stuff actually works unless you have your pricing figured out. Furthermore, there are a lot of outside CFOs and literally an endless number of agencies, but most of them are not hands-on when it comes to pricing. And that's exactly our niche at Leaflet. We are hands-on when it comes to pricing. So I'm going to do something kind of radical. We've never done this before. I'm going to explain the exact step-by-step process that we use here at Leaflet for price testing. This is the process we use to generate 84% growth in gross margin within 5 weeks. This is the exact process we've used to generate literally millions of dollars of incremental revenue and gross margin. So here we are, just giving it away on the internet for free. I hope it goes to good use. I hope you make a lot of money with this. I hope you find this valuable. If so, let me know. Drop me a line. I'll put my email address up over here. If you have any questions or you want more details or help with execution, drop me a note and I'll be happy to talk with you. Okay, so let's jump in. It all begins with a methodical planning process, all right, where we start by studying the catalog and the orders and the web sessions. And we do this both algorithmically as well as like laying our actual eyes on all of the numbers. So how many products are there in total? What's the concentration of orders among, say, the top third of products? How many line items are those third of products moving? How many line items are we selling in the store overall? What's the distribution of margin rates within that top third of products? How many different product types are in the store, and how are those represented in the top third of products? What are the existing brand practices for the store when it comes to price? Are all prices even dollars, odd dollars, yes 99 cents, no 99 cents, things like that? And what's the blended gross margin rate across the store? We'll look at everything both as absolute values as well as distributions by product type, by tertiary of sales. And we use all of that information that we gather from the data. We combine that with what we learn from actually interviewing the business stakeholders, because a lot of the most important information is qualitative information that you'll only learn from actually talking to people. Every business stakeholder knows their business the best. They're the expert. So it's important to combine our analysis of the data with that firsthand expertise in the business. We take all of that together to formulate a set of hypotheses. And what I'm showing on this page here is sort of an archetype of the hypotheses we use. The null hypothesis, that's the thing that we're trying to disprove, hopefully, is that all of the prices in the store are already Pareto efficient. Pareto efficient is a term that means that nothing could be made better off without making something else worse off. That's all that Pareto efficient means. Okay? So that's the null hypothesis. That's what we're trying to disprove. The first hypothesis that we're hoping to see instead of the null hypothesis, bear some fruit, is that all prices in the store would be more efficient if adjusted by a fixed increment. Let me give you an example of that. We believe that all products would be more profitable if we raised prices across the board by $5, or if we lowered prices across the board by 10%. That's an example of hypothesis number one. An example of hypothesis number two would be, we believe some products, like let's say the blue jeans that we sell, should be increased in price by $5, but the shoes should have their price increased by 25%. Something a little bit more detailed like that, where maybe not everything is running in the same direction, or not everything by the same magnitude or percent. So those are the three sort of types of hypotheses that we're usually looking at: null hypothesis, hypothesis 1, and hypothesis 2. Okay? We then make a detailed plan for testing those hypotheses. And as you can see, this is not just throwing something at the wall and seeing what sticks. This is really sitting down up front and mapping out every possible contingency and figuring out what are we going to do if we get this signal, if we get that signal. So let me just say at the high level, there's several phases to this particular testing plan. We make a custom testing plan for every brand that we work with because every situation is unique. In this fourth phase here, what's called the leverage phase, that's where we're actually sort of at cruising altitude, where we're testing the price of all the products in the store. These stages leading up to that are intended to de-risk the proposition of going into that phase where we're testing across the whole store. Because, if you're spending tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars per month on advertising, it can be a little scary to do something new at sort of store-wide scale. So the apply phase is really intended to de-risk the leverage phase, and the learn phase is intended to de-risk the apply phase, so that we're really confident by the time we're going store-wide, catalog-wide, we're really confident in what we're doing. We're as confident as we can be. The planning stage, this maps to what I was showing in the previous slides, like order products by 30-day net volume, divide products into 3 groups, identify product types in each group. What we're really trying to do here is arrive at a sample set of products that are sort of representative of the catalog as a whole. In this example, what we ended up doing was we started out testing on one pieces. That was the name of a product type. One pieces that are in the top third of products by 30-day net sales. So your fastest moving one pieces in this example. So what we did, because this brand does all pricing in even dollar increments, is we did a test of a $2 increase in price relative to control. So what that means is all of the one pieces in the top third of products by volume had their prices increased by $2. A $48 one piece becomes a $50 one piece. A $36 one piece becomes a $38 one piece, and so on and so forth. Now that in this case was dozens and dozens of products. I think it was more than 100 products, but it's still just a sample. And we evaluate, was there a gain? If yes, then we'll take it a step further and we'll test a $4 increase versus control. If not, we'll flip it around and test a $2 decrease relative to control. After testing a $2 decrease relative to control, then we'll ask, was there a net gain from that? If yes, we'll move on to testing a $4 decrease relative to control. If there was not a net gain at testing minus $2, and there was not a net gain at testing plus $2, then at least in this plan, I mean, this didn't end up being the case, but according to the plan we set out, the next step would be to go back to the drawing board and say, maybe we chose the wrong sample of products because we're not getting a clear signal in one direction or the other. But if we do get a clear signal in one direction, that we're getting more money's shaking to the bottom with a higher price or with a lower price, then we'll ask, all right, if when we tested it, the +$4 relative to control, we want to know not only was there a net gain, but was that net gain greater than the net gain when we were testing $2 relative to control? And similarly on the other side. All right. Now let's say that the net gain when we tested +$4 relative to control was greater than the net gain at +$2 relative to control. That would create an inference that when we go into the apply phase, we want to be testing, see, was it greater than before? Yes. That would create an inference that we want to be testing a +$4 change in the apply phase as sort of our first best guess when we're expanding to a broader set of products, in this case, all one pieces. It creates an inference that that's the next move, but we can't be sure that that inference is correct because of cannibalization. Cannibalization means that your gains in one product may actually be coming at the expense of another product. So if the net gain on this test at $4 was greater than the net gain at $2, our next step will actually be to try to quantify any cannibalization effects that occurred when testing at +$4. Similarly, if it turned out that the net gain under +4 was less than the net gain under +2, then we'll quantify cannibalization under the +2 versus control test, so that we're making sure before moving on that our gains are truly incremental rather than just sort of moving money from one column to the other. And that would be true in both directions, whether we see that we're getting more action moving up or moving down. Okay, so then in the apply phase, we're expanding, as I said, to a broader set of products, still with a minority of the traffic, only 20%. And then that is de-risking our leverage phase when we're starting to get to the entire product catalog. We have a pretty scientific guess as to what our starting position should be, whether that's +$2 on everything versus control, +$4 on everything versus control, -2, -4. And again, we're going to measure, was there a net gain? Was it greater than before? All right. So far in this plan, everything is moving in lockstep. Either we're testing everything with an increase, testing everything with a decrease. When we get to the fine-tune stage, that's where we're starting to focus on the underperforming products, right? So we select the products that performed worse under whichever arrangement was the ultimate winner from the previous steps. We select those products and then we start testing on those products individually while holding the price of everything else constant. And ultimately what this process does is it narrows in on a set of prices with a maximum net gain, and then at the end of the process we'll actually quantify that total lift. So like I said, this is just an example. Every case is unique, so we put together a custom plan for every brand. Some take more time, some take less time, but that's sort of the process. And we found that this process does consistently deliver results. So by way of example, this is a jewelry brand that we worked with, and within 6 weeks they had tripled their volume of gross margin dollars. This is an apparel brand that we worked with. Within 5 weeks, gross margin dollars were up by 426%. We've worked with more than 700 brands at this point, including several category leaders. And this is not, at least for me, this is not my first rodeo. I had a pricing company before this that was acquired by LegalZoom. It was actually doing pricing in the consumer legal industry. So we grew that business to about $5 million a year in revenue, and when that was acquired by LegalZoom. And I'm really blessed to have some excellent partners. David is a hardcore software engineer. He's actually a veteran of the Israeli Defense Force Elite 8200 Information Security Unit. He specializes in data engineering, e-commerce, and information security. And then Roman is an AI researcher with a PhD in computational neuroscience and a master's degree in signal processing. So that's the team. And a little bit about how we work typically. We find that we are able to get the best results when we actually lay our eyes on every single test that's going on. So this is the interface that we use for doing that. And this is how we actually measure results. So you can see, I'll zoom in over here if I can. Yeah, you can see the control price is getting 80% of the traffic in this example, and the test price is getting 20% of the traffic. Control price $75, test price $70. So we're giving up a little bit of margin in this test, hoping to make it up on volume. And in this example, it did actually work out very well because the conversion rate is significantly higher, like almost double at the test price. And that translates into higher average revenue per 100 visits and average margin dollars per 100 visits. So we run the test till it reaches completion. And by the end, actually as we go as well, it will tell us how the actual margin lift as a result of running this test, meaning given that we only put 20% of our traffic into the more efficient pricing, how much extra margin dollars did we actually earn during the course of this test? This is not like a forward-looking projection. This is measuring what has actually happened during the course of the test, given the traffic split that's actually being used. Expected margin lift is if we had given 100% of our traffic to the more profitable price, what would it have been worth to us? Okay, so that's a little bit about how we measure how things are going. And this is all well and good, it's very informative, but like I was saying earlier, if you have 100 products, 1,000 products, 100,000 products, there's no way that even we could, look at that many different independent test results. And so that's what's so wonderful about boiling the actual impact down to one number, like the actual margin lift, is it enables us to look at everything sort of at a summary level, which we send out to all of our business stakeholders on a regular basis, usually weekly. So this impact, in the impact column, that's being taken from the actual margin lift, okay? And summarized for each product, as well as a link to the detailed test results. So then we can take all of the margin lift and we deduct all of the actual losses, because not every product, especially in a phase of a testing plan where everything is moving in lockstep, not every product is going to win under every test. Sometimes you'll have winners and losers. So we deduct the losers from the winners to arrive at an actual net impact. That's the net impact, the net benefit in terms of gross margin dollars to the business of running the tests that we actually ran. Okay? And this is just a little bit about how we typically work. We typically work on a commission basis, a pay-for-performance basis. We found that bringing our accumulated expertise to the party is what typically generates the best results, and we have the best incentive to do that when our incentives are aligned with the business. So we have totally moved away from doing like SaaS subscriptions, app, fee type of models, and we're all in on just like being partners with businesses. So we actually put in the work up front, we deliver the results, and then based on the results that we deliver, we take a percentage, a piece of that action. And just to clarify, when I say a piece of the action, I mean a piece of the incremental action. So like going back over here where the average margin dollars per 100 visits was $641 at the test price and $291 at the control price, we don't take a commission on the $641. We take a commission on the difference between the $641 and the $291. That's what we mean by the increment. And again, it's only based on like the net increment. So it's as much as possible taking payment on what we actually help create. And we can do that either based on top line growth or based on bottom line growth. So to put it differently, incremental revenue dollars or incremental gross margin dollars. Okay, what else did I want to cover? Oh yeah, we also, we do have like a self-service option, more of a do-it-yourself It's a lot more work, and we cannot stand behind the results, obviously. But it is a lower ticket offering, so if that's more of what you're interested in, let me know and I can give you more information about that. All right, so what else did I want to cover? Yeah, so the typical process for how this all gets kicked off, a lot of people ask that question, is this is the actual testing process. This is the planning process, and these are the steps that we need to kick off that planning process. So let's start here with the actual testing process. We'll be testing against an organized plan, as I was showing earlier. We execute the plan, we analyze the results, then we get in on a check-in call with the business stakeholders. On that call is when we'll go over the results from that round of testing. We'll discuss to the extent we need to. We'll talk about, based on the results from round one, what does that mean we should be doing in the next round? Do we still think that this plan makes sense, or have we found something that causes us to say maybe we should reevaluate the plan? If so, we'll actually adjust the testing plan. It's a totally iterative process, and it just goes in a circle like that. And the actual length of that cycle, of course, depends on the nuances of the testing plan. This is the planning phase that we need to go through before we actually kick off the testing. There's two sort of threads in the planning phase. There's creating that testing plan, and then there's doing all of the R&D associated with integrating with your store, or as I said earlier, equipping your store to run controlled price tests without throwing a monkey wrench, hopefully, into any other aspect of the business. So those are the two things going on in the planning phase: getting the testing plan together and getting the integration together. I'll speak about each one. So with the testing plan, we will put together a draft. We'll send it to you by email, and then we'll actually meet with you to go over that draft plan, answer any questions you may have. Frequently, to be honest with you, we'll put together a couple of different plans, a couple of different options, and let the business stakeholder sort of decide which plan is closer to what they're looking to do. And then even beyond that, we can make modifications to the plan. We'll get totally aligned, and that's when we'll lock in that plan, at least, until rubber meets the road. With the R&D process, the integration R&D, what we're trying to do is get the integration live in your store while minimizing the risk of anything going wrong. So we actually build the integration on our own staging server. That way, if anything goes wrong, it doesn't impact your live business. And we will demo that integration for you before anything goes live. So you'll get an opportunity to make sure everything looks the way that it's expected to look, everything behaves the way it's expected to behave. And then once we have your sign off on the integration, as well as the plan, is when we'll actually start the testing process. Before the planning process, these are the steps we need to get through in order to kick off the planning process. We need to get collaborator access to your store, which is needed for the integration R&D. We need to get the Leaflet app installed on your store, which is how we start getting access to all of the data. And before that is usually when we're having a discussion and a demo with a brand stakeholder. Typically, all of this stuff is done the same day if someone wants to move forward. This is usually, the planning process is usually 1 to 2 days, depending on our pipeline. Now, a question that I frequently get, so I like to answer this preemptively, is people ask, okay, it sounds great, totally pay for performance, totally commission-based, what's the catch? The catch must be that I'm locked into some long-term arrangement against my will. You'll keep me locked away in a tower or something like that. So people ask, how long am I obligated to pay that commission? The answer is, you're only obligated as long as you want to be. The commissions are only applicable for as long as we are testing any given product. The commissions are assessed on a product-by-product basis. Even though the losses count against the wins, they are assessed on a product-by-product basis. And so as long as we're testing a product actively is when you're paying a commission on it, if there's any net benefit there. And the moment you tell us to stop testing actively on a particular product is when the commission on that product comes to an end. Let's see, what are the other typical questions that people ask? Yeah, I think that covers most of everything. If I missed anything, if there's anything that you wanted me to go into more particular detail about, if you're looking for any of the execution diagrams, flow charts, anything like that, any particular questions, I know everything is very case dependent when it comes to price testing. Feel free to drop me a line. I'm happy to chat with you. I'll put my email address up over here. And I hope you found this valuable. I'm glad I got to be the guy to share it with you, and I hope you make a lot of money with this and have a wonderful day. Okay? Take care.